For the majority of the population, criminal investigations aside, DNA tests really started out just a few years back as something to use recreationally. If you've ever wanted to know truly where you came from, what your background is, or just curious about your family tree, then DNA testing is definitely the way to go. Just a simple swab, send it back to one of the many companies doing so. Through time, these tests have evolved and become like a key in a way to understanding much about the individual submitting. For instance, you can learn about diseases that your genetics predispose you to. And while results may vary, in some extreme cases, the information revealed by doing a DNA test has had some serious life-altering effects on a certain few. I'm Andrew, and welcome to another episode of Scary Mysteries. Today, we're going to be taking a look at some wildly strange and disturbing stories from people just like you and me, who are simply looking to get a broader background about themselves, but instead ended up completely changing their lives and those of their families forever. If you haven't already, then please subscribe and click the notifications on so you know when our next video is dropping. And now, here are 5 DNA tests that revealed shocking truths. Number 5. Babies switched at birth. Getting switched at birth might sound like a plot of a movie or TV series, but surprisingly, it's something that actually happens in real life. Statistics even revealed that in America, close to 30,000 babies get switched in hospitals each year. One of these famous stories about 2 children being switched at birth happened in 1995. In June of that year, a woman named Paula Johnson gave birth to a baby girl at the University of Virginia Medical Center in Charlottesville, Virginia. The family named her Callie. It must have been parental intuition, but 3 years later, Johnson's boyfriend asked for a paternity test to determine if their daughter was really his. It didn't take long for the results to come in. What they learned was the most astonishing news of their lives. They found out that not only did Callie not belong to the boyfriend, but she didn't belong to the mother either. Paula immediately alerted the hospital about the mix-up. And after an investigation, the staff realized that the girl actually belonged to a couple named Kevin Chittum and his 16-year-old girlfriend, Whitney Rogers. Rogers had given birth to a little girl a day after Johnson did, and they named their baby Rebecca. But strangely, it seemed like fate wouldn't want Chittum or Rogers to see their biological daughter. Just hours before authorities would tell the couple that Callie was actually theirs and Rebecca belonged to Johnson, tragedy struck. On that day, they were involved in a horrific car crash that ended their lives. Rebecca's non-biological grandparents eventually got her into their custody. Johnson, however, wanted to make a claim of her as her biological child. A legal battle then ensued, and it went on for 3 years. And surprisingly, it ended with the judge ruling that the children would remain with the families that they grew up with. It was an extremely difficult decision for Johnson to accept, but she had no choice. The 2 families tried to reconcile their differences by setting up a visitation schedule, but as much as they wanted to, the 2 clans couldn't seem to get along. The girls themselves were not interested in making connections with their respective relatives. In an interview, Callie said she wouldn't want for things to change between her and Paula Johnson, whom she called her mother and best friend. This story somehow reminds us that blood isn't always thicker than water. Number 4. Not the father. There's probably nothing more rewarding or worthwhile in this world than to give birth to your own child. Sadly, not all couples can achieve this goal via the natural means, so then they seek out fertility doctors, and these health professionals specialize in helping people become parents. They offer many solutions, the most popular of which is artificial insemination and in vitro fertilization. These reproductive techniques are supposed to be relatively straightforward. In artificial insemination, for instance, patients look for or are being provided with sperm donors of their own choosing. In the past, people had no reason to suspect their fertility doctors of committing any form of misconduct, and yet there are those who were despicable enough to do the unimaginable. Eve Wiley, a woman from Dallas, was just 16 years old when she learned that she had been brought into this world through artificial insemination. That, of course, all started when her mother, Margot, realized that her husband was infertile. Mrs. Williams, who is now 65 years old, sought the help from a certain Dr. McMorris, who referred her to a sperm bank in California. The woman did what she was told and eventually gave birth to Eve. Like many Americans, Wiley was driven by her curiosity to find out more about her genealogy, and so in 2017 she took one of those consumer DNA test kits, and the results weren't as she expected. She found out that her biological father was not the California sperm donor her mom had told her about, and it was even more shocking for her to know that her biological father actually turned out to be Dr. McMorris himself. The results shook the 31-year-old housewife down to her core. An inquiry about the matter followed soon after, and Mrs. Williams assured her daughter that never in her whole life did she consent the fertility doctor to use his own sperm to get her pregnant. Wiley's family confronted Dr. McMorris about the issue. The fertility expert said that he knowingly mixed his own sperm with that of the donor. According to him, he only wanted to improve Mrs. Williams' chances of conception. But of course, this was unacceptable. In an effort to criminalize this act, Wiley, along with other victims of similar schemes, worked to pass a law that would make such malpractice a sexual assault in Texas. We won't know for sure what went on inside the doctor's head when he committed this crime, but one thing's for sure: his vile actions have negatively affected the lives of his patients and their entire families. Number 3, likely chance of cancer. Not long ago, people had to seek out fortune tellers with the hopes of finding out anything about their future. But now, thanks to science, even a single drop of saliva is enough to take a glimpse of what's to come. Dorothy Pomerantz, a journalist, became curious of her health, so she wanted to know if there was a possibility of her contracting terminal illnesses and diseases like cancer. It so happened that there are companies like 23andMe that offer comprehensive insights to our health based on our genetic background. What she did was provided a DNA sample and a test kit, which she mailed to the company for analysis. And after doing so, the lady went back to her normal life, seemingly unbothered. She continued to lead a healthy lifestyle, that is, until one day when she received an email from the aforementioned DNA genetic testing facility, and it contained the results of her test. The email says that she has a gene mutation called BRCA1. BRCA1, also known as breast cancer gene 1, is a gene that helps protect damaged DNA. However, when these tumor suppressor genes undergo abnormal changes, it may develop harmful variants like breast and ovarian cancer. In utter shock, she continued reading the letter, and while in tears, she remembered that her aunt died of breast cancer and realized that it is not impossible for her to have it. As someone who had just received the distressing news, the woman immediately turned to Google to search for an answer, and what she found out scared her even more. It states that about 12% of women have the possibility of developing breast cancer, and 1.3% of ovarian cancer, based only on what is being passed down in the genes. Though mournful, the journalist decided to redo the test for confirmation. As suggested by her counselor, she had herself examined in a hospital-approved lab. Praying to get the opposite results this time, Pomerantz waited patiently. After several weeks, her genetic counselor confirmed the devastating news. She is, indeed, at risk of having breast and ovarian cancer, and now that she knew that, the woman evaluated her options. One of the decisions she made was to have a mastectomy as a preventative measure. Despite the difficulties of dealing with the genetic result, the woman is still grateful that she found out about the mutation before cancer affected her body. The opportunity to see your fate in front of you can bring either gladness or gloom in your life. However, we appreciate it more when we are able to prepare for what exactly is coming. Number 2, angry family tree. There is a saying that goes, we don't get to choose our parents, and parents don't get to choose their children. But what we can choose is our willingness to work in order to make the best of what we're given. Wendy Spencer learned this truth the hard way, because in October of 2014, the 50-year-old learned that one of her friends ordered a DNA test kit from 23andMe. Just out of curiosity, the hairstylist decided to find out more about her family's history. The reason for this was that she had always wanted to verify what her mother hinted to her about their divorce. Turns out that in 1964, Spencer's mother, Liberta Goldstein, had an affair with a man named Bill Miller, whom she met at a bowling alley. At that time, her husband, Roger Rostek, who was in the Air Force, was on a 2-week trip down to New Zealand. The shame and bitterness that this affair caused in their relationship forced Goldstein and Rostek to split up. Wendy was still in 3rd grade at that time, and years later, she heard from her 72-year-old mother about the affair. Spencer thought the DNA test could further shed light on this tumultuous family history. It was an unnerving revelation in and of itself, when the results said that Miller is indeed her biological father. But nothing prepared her for what was about to come. The woman, who is Jewish, learned that this father of hers is a very racist man. When she eventually met Miller in person, she was somewhat appalled to hear the man utter racial slurs and derogatory statements against non-white people. It came to a point where the 74-year-old even commented how Memphis, the city that he was born in, had been ruined because of black people. You can only assume how surprised she was when she learned yet another truth about her family tree. Apparently, Miller's father, who is in turn Spencer's own grandfather, was a Ku Klux Klan Grand Wizard. The man had been caught trying to sabotage a men's dormitory at the Philander Smith College for Negroes in Little Rock. It's terribly upsetting for the woman to know about this wild family history on her father's side, but she was as equally concerned of another thing. Spencer's own husband is black, and they have 4 children together, who are now all fully grown adults, and it's become a huge challenge for Spencer to let her family accept the fact that she has a bigoted father and a high-ranking KKK grandfather. In an interview, Miller said that he was shocked and found it hard to believe that his son-in-law and grandkids were all black. But eventually, everyone came to accept the situation. After all, we can't choose our family. Number 1, wrong mother. There's just no limit to how strange nature can get. Linda Fairchild is a woman from Washington State who finds it odd that she couldn't call her children her own. Her dilemma began in 2002 when she applied for government assistance. The mom, who was 26 years old at the time, went through some DNA tests. This was supposed to be part of the routine requirement. However, she learned something everyone thought to be unbelievable. She was told that her 2 children, the ones she literally carried in her womb, labored, and brought forth into this world, were not hers. Technically, they were not a genetic match with her, and that therefore, as science would put it, She is not their biological mother. After that confusion, chaos ensued. The Department of Social Services summoned Fairchild for interrogation, and all of a sudden the mother became a criminal suspect. Not only was she denied the assistance that she had long been requesting, but she was also accused of acting as a paid surrogate mother and thus had committed welfare fraud. Not only will she be imprisoned and be made to pay a hefty fine, but her kids could also be taken away from her as well. The distraught mother tried her best to provide proof of her pregnancy of the children, but the photos and videos of her carrying them in her womb were apparently not enough. Everyone in her family were tested as well to prove that they were all related, and the court even decided to conduct new sets of maternity DNA tests conducted by different labs. However, the results remained the same. The children were not hers. Fairchild was this close to being penalized when her defense attorney came with a surprising breakthrough. They discovered, and had proven in court, that the woman exhibited a case of chimerism. This is a condition in which two genetically distinct cell lines are present in one body. To put it simply, Fairchild has an invisible twin living microscopically inside her body. Then, when she got pregnant, the DNA that the kids carried was that of the other person. Chimerism is super rare, and there's only about 30 documented cases worldwide. To prove the mother's connection to her children, their DNA then was matched to that of Fairchild's mother. This turned out to be favorable on the part, as at last, it was proven that they are all related. Human biology is definitely always full of surprises. DNA tests are like magical mirrors that offer not only the visions of your future, but also a glimpse of your past. Just know that whatever the outcome is, there's a possibility that you'll get the most unexpected surprises that could forever change your life. So that's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed these stories, then remember to subscribe because we have 3 videos coming out every single week for you guys to check out on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And if you want even creepier, uncensored videos, plus much more, or if you just want to support us, then go check us out on patreon.com/scarymysteries. We appreciate the support. I'll see you soon.